Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast, The Wire Remixed, Season 1, Episode 10, The Cost. As always, I'm joined by one Robert Sapp. How you doing this Sunday afternoon, Mr. Sapp?
You doing well. Let's get it.
Big episode. This was a big episode to say the least. This was one of these episodes where The Wire had 60 episodes. This was probably, I would say, the first oh shit episode. There's about 3 or 4 of them over the course of the series. Because The Wire, as we all know, The Wire is not about a lot of action, a lot of, sitcom type stuff, where you can see normal television with the whole, with theatrics and shit like that. This was the first, like, whoa, like that happened. And of course, we'll get to that part of the episode. It begins, this episode, of course, is called Cost. It was directed by one Brad Anderson. It ranks by Vulture 13th all time in terms of Wire episodes. Is, I would say, the highest ranked episode we've done up to this point. The epigraph was, and then he dropped the bracelets by one Shakima Greggs, and we have a new award, by the way, a new award called the Shardine Innes Award for Best Acting Performance. The reason I came up with this award is because of Robert Sapp. Robert Sapp shouted out Shardine's performance last week, and I said, you know what? I'm going to give her an award. I'm going to give her an award with her name. So, best, we're going to do. We always do MVP. We're going to do Best Acting Performance. Best Acting Performance, the Shardine Innes, the Shardine Award, because I can't pronounce her last name, Innes, the Shardine Award. Opening scene, we have Bubbles sitting, this is right before the epigraph. We have Bubbles sitting on a park bench, and Bubbles in this scene is by himself, sitting on a park bench, looks semi-clean. Bubbles looks like he's been clean for a couple of days, which it turns out he had been. And doesn't look 100% clean, but semi-clean. Looks like he's pondering his life, reflecting, a little bit of self-reflection going on. And then, of course, about 30 seconds later, we are reminded that he indeed is still a crackhead, as a crackhead walks past him and says, "What's up, Bubbles?" And, he acknowledges the dude. So just when we think that there is some hope, we're quickly reminded in terms of who Bubbles is. Short scene, but still, any scene that opens the episode is of importance. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah. Like you said, like there's a lot in the opening of this scene, even though it is short. So what I took away from it was that, Bubbles is sitting there and he's like reflecting on life, right? Like it takes a long time to get clean. Like you don't get clean in a matter of days or seconds or hours or sometimes even years. It takes a while. So he's sitting there and he's like reflecting on it. And like when those people coming by him, it's kind of like a juxtaposition, not juxtaposition, that's the wrong word. It's him looking at what he's known as right now. And as you said, he's known as Bubbles the crackhead right now. And he's reflecting on if that's what he wants his life to be. At least that's what I took away from the scene. And so it's a setup for the heaviness that is to come, and then an even bigger setup for the reflection that's to come, but all that won't happen in this episode. So The Wire's thinking 2 steps ahead already.
Yeah.
They have been the whole season.
Yeah, no question. There's a lot of setup in this particular scene, even though it wasn't that long. For Bubbles is really his journey, to be honest with you. So you have Avon, Weebay, and Stringer at the club during the daytime when it was closed. Avon gives Stringer credit for basically. Avon gives Stringer credit for saying that he should have took his advice. He also acknowledges Weebay for saving his life, even though Weebay, Weebay has was feeling kind of guilty the fact that Avon even got shot at. But Avon acknowledges Weebay for saving his life. He gives Stringer credit. Gives Stringer credit in terms of saying that I should have took heed to your advice about the truce approach towards Omar. Stringer takes Avon's pager and says the only way out of town cats can get to you as far as a drug connect or even get in contact with you is through me. So he takes Avon's pager, and they of course ignite fist bump at the end of the scene. Was Avon's response to Stringer an emotional response, or did he believe that Stringer gave him the best advice? Last couple episodes, we've been seeing Avon basically say, or completely go against, any truce or any type of trying to settle with Omar. Why do you think he acknowledged?
Yeah, I mean, like if I'm about to go on the reflective kind of like that's kind of like the energy of this episode, then I have to admit when it happens to a theory that I was thinking about, and so I definitely think, because I asked myself that question as I was watching, I was like, well, what's going on here? And I definitely do think Avon in this moment is reflecting after he almost got caught, like to our debate last week, regardless of if Omar missed, the point is he did miss, but Avon from his perspective isn't thinking of it as, oh, he missed the king. He's thinking of it as he almost got me. So that brings on a reflection of its own. And so I do think he was genuinely reflecting on if his way was the right way and maybe Stringer had a better way. I have a very interesting noticing on Stringer, though, this entire episode, or thought that hadn't occurred to me until I watched this episode again.
Okay. So Phelan, McNulty, Perlman, they're in Phelan's office. Phelan, throughout the course of this scene, was very nervous and anxious as they're going through the case and what have you. He's visibly a little bit shook. He basically is telling McNulty, how long is this going to take? When is it going to be over? So on and so on, as they're giving him more details on the case. When he walks out, or when they walk out, Perlman lets McNulty know that Phelan is off the ticket. Is off the mayor's ticket. Phelan took over for a judge. Took over for a judge that I don't know, retired or what have you, or left, and to fill out his term. So he's not on there. He's not on his own original term. So his term is about to be up. So clearly, politics have shifted Phelan's thought process and his attitude at the present moment. And Phelan and McNulty asked Perlman what happened, and she, mockingly says to McNulty, "I don't know. Maybe it's the company that he keeps." What were your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, this is I don't know if they knew it at the time, like how much they knew, guarantee of what seasons are, but I know they were thinking about what future seasons would look like and plot out. That's setting us up for season 3. It is like at this point in time, they are giving us very whispers of what politics looks like. Like we can directly connect the dots of what happened, but at this point in time, and I remember when I was watching this for the first time, you're making up the political moves behind the scenes.
Right.
So we can now look at this as a direct setup for season 3. Or a prelude to the heavier politics when we see it all play out in real time in season 3. In this case right here, they're giving us an idea of that politics play a role in how all these decisions are made. And it's particularly with this judge, we see the impact of it, right? Like before, when he feels safe and secure, he's all about whatever. Like, I don't care, blah, blah, blah. Like, this, like, no, another 30 days, what, da, da, da. As soon as that political pressure gets pushed just a little bit, and he realizes how vulnerable he is, because he doesn't have the 15-year, and that's what McNulty was probably thinking. I mean, he says it, and that's what he was thinking in his mind. He doesn't have the 15-year cushion because he came in on somebody else's term. He only has 2 years, and then he has to run again. So as soon as he felt a little bit of that political pressure, that the judge that we knew up until that point totally flipped his disposition. And so like that's what I mean. They're giving us the whispers of how politics play a role in all this.
So you have Donette and D'Angelo in D'Angelo's apartment. She is talking about moving in, saying he needs a bigger place. She wants money. She's just talking, basically. She's rambling, this, that, and the third. He completely has zero interest in anything that she said, that she's saying. He's totally ignoring her. He clearly is thinking about Chardine, or thinking about something else. But he's like, the idea of moving in with her, the idea of living with her is not even going through his mind whatsoever. He walks out the apartment without saying a word and walks out without giving her money, giving her any money. Again, a quick scene, but just gave you some more, I guess gave you some insight towards that relationship or lack thereof. What were your thoughts on the scene?
Yeah, this is actually a setup for Chardine, right? Like, because it's about like the impact the small impact that she had on D'Angelo, where, longtime girlfriend, mother of his child, and she's talking, and he's kind of like thinking about Chardine, thinking about like that. So the impact on him, and then also the importance of Chardine, the character in the story, in terms of she can give fill in blanks that the police have. Let's say that.
Yeah. McNulty, Freeman, Carver are determined where they get a call, and they determine where that number is getting called from. They're getting a call for a re-up in the towers, or in the towers. They determine where that call is coming from, because they of course, the towers or the pit is running low on drugs. So they determine that where that number is coming from, and it ended up coming from this is kind of like a setup for a later scene in terms of a stakeout that Carver and Signer would go on. So they get the re-up order. The re-up order is coming from a Barksdale soldier into the towers. So so you have a setup for what will come up in the later on in the episode. Again, quick scene, but again, they're getting further and deeper into how the Barksdales work. And you got any thoughts on this scene?
Nah, you nailed it. Setup.
Orlando and the undercover cop. So Orlando here just totally dismisses the ass whooping that he got a couple episodes ago. He buys from an undercover cop who turns out to be a state police, not just a regular cop, but a state police at that. And I just I know why this was written the way it was written, because I think it was clearly written to show that Orlando wasn't cut out for the drug game. But I just wanted to know from your perspective, what was Orlando's play here? So let's say for argument's sake that this cop was not a cop and that he was a legit drug dealer.
Right.
He buys this, and then where is he going to sell it? Like what?
Right. There is no play, and that was Avon's point to him. You're the clean person for a reason. You're not in the game. Like that's the whole point of having you on the lease, because this is not a part of your life. So there was no play. This is pure greed, pure and simple. It's just that piece. You can't give Orlando the attributes of a Stringer, a Avon, or a Bodie, or a D'Angelo, because he's not from that part. He's not from that game. So he doesn't have a play. All he sees as, oh, we haven't gotten to Levy scene yet. All he sees is the glory of what the drug game gives. He's not thinking about the grind that needs to happen in order to get to where Avon and Stringer is. He's going after the glory. It's stupid, and that's exactly why. That's exactly why he's the clean front, because he has no sense of the game.
Yeah, writers are trying to tell you there are certain people who just should not be playing the game, and he's one of them. He also, to your point from last week about patience and the patience and frustration I shouldn't say patience, frustration, in terms of Omar. And you said that Omar's frustration led to a rash decision.
Yes.
He's frustrated by the fact that he's not getting more money. So that, yes, he wants the glory. He sees the glory, he sees the riches, but he also is frustrated by the fact that he doesn't feel like he's getting his just deserve as being.
You're right. They're all one and the same, though.
Yeah.
They're all one and the same. Glory, riches, power, all of it conflates together. He wants all of it. He just has no clue.
Right. So again, there was no plan. This was just completely dumb, and he completely gets taken advantage of by the undercover cop, which is the scene was kind of hilarious when they started laughing at him at the end of the scene.
Yeah.
So you have McNulty looking for Wallace. McNulty gets some of the cops. He cases Wallace's place out. So he sees how Wallace is living with the electric cord going from out the window. He then gets some cops to stake out Wallace's place until Wallace pops up. He gives them crab cakes and beer and Heineken's, which is which is always enticing if you're a cop, who has to do a stakeout for God knows how many hours. And again, I think as much as big as an asshole as McNulty is, and we know how big of an asshole and how manipulative he is, this is the other side. McNulty doing good police work, and McNulty, the cop says something to him at the end, says, I don't care what they say about you, you're cool, you are with me. So McNulty, having friends within the force that would do favors for him, or knowing how to get people to do favors for him to benefit his case. So they gave you that angle in terms of McNulty. What were your thoughts on this scene?
There you go. You said at the end, knowing how to manipulate people to do favors for him. Look, we all manipulate. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not like assigning McNulty a superpower that is different from anything else that human beings do. We all manipulate people for a variety of different reasons. Some people might not use the word manipulate or might not like the word manipulate, and that's fine. And so this could be like, oh, he's doing a favor for somebody who's going to do a favor for him. Well, and probably like more likely people are like, he knows what it's like to be on that other side. Therefore he's doing that. All of that, acknowledge, fine, everything like that. But everything, I agree with that. Also, this is just further a part of him. This is the piece that's a part of him. And I will say we will see the continuation of that in the court when we get there. And so, yeah, it's a small thing or whatever, but McNulty knows how to make people do things they don't want to do.
Yes.
And like, let's say that sometimes it's the carrot, sometimes it's the stick. In this case, with his fellow police officers, it was the carrot.
No question about it. You have Whalen and you have Bubbles. Whalen and Bubbles have a conversation. And a couple reveals in this conversation. First of all, Waylon tells Bubbles he's got HIV. He reveals that part of it. Bubbles is trying to get clean. He's been clean for 3 days, which is a lot for him, to be honest with you. And Bubbles lets Waylon know that he has a kid, that he has a son. Up until that point, we didn't know that up until that point. And the mother took the son away, said he wasn't fit to be a father. He doesn't disagree. Waylon, at the end of the conversation, brings up things that we will see down the road throughout the course of Bubbles' journey as far as forgiveness and self-love. And he has a quote here. I have it in front of me. He says, this is Waylon speaking now. He says, getting clean is the easy part. Now comes life.
There you go.
What are your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it with that quote. I mean, this scene is deep, it's heavy, it's the whole ball game when it comes to Bubbles. That's the struggle that will forever be his struggle. That's the struggle of his character. That's his character arc. This is Bubbles in a nutshell. It's just that simple. And that's why Waylon is such an important character, because he gives Bubbles hope for what it could look like. And what Waylon is saying is, the hope is just that you are a part of life. But life, as we all know, is full of ups and downs. And the ups can be very high and the downs can be very low. And that's without using any substance at all. That's without that. And so, yeah. Getting clean, getting sober, all that. Yep, that's great. And that's the first step. That's what needs to happen. But then you got to be prepared to live life. And that's where a lot of people fall down. Not just addicts, just people in general fall down with that. And in particular, in Bubbles' case, as an addict, it's not when you just want to do a drug or just want to do, it's when something really heavy and emotional or a normal life frustration happens that then you'll be looking to use again. And so, yeah, heavy on a lot of different levels, but the biggest thing is this actually names Bubbles' journey throughout this entire series.
Yeah, this scene single-handedly sets Bubbles on his course. You can take, not to dismiss everything that happened before this scene in terms of his journey, but this is like a rubber meets the road point in the story arc.
I mean, we're just at the very, very beginning of Bubbles. I mean, like, everybody who doesn't know will know how just monster, outside of and this is probably for another discussion, but I would say outside of Omar, Bubbles is the second best character in this show, period. In terms of like the journey that he goes on. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. We'll do that later. But so we're very much at the beginning of his journey, and up until this time, all we've seen is Bubbles in the throes of being an active addict. This is now, you're absolutely right, adding that next part of the journey of, well, what happens if Bubble wants to get clean? What's that struggle look like?
Yeah, I mean, we see it all.
But you need the first part of that journey. You need to see him in the throes of addiction.
Absolutely. You see also too, and you talk about addiction, you talk about conforming to society. You see people get out of jail all the time who just cannot handle society even when they get out of jail. So
go back to that quote. It's not society, or I mean, like, yes, society, but go back to that quote. What the quote that you just said?
What? Getting clean is the easy part. Now comes life.
There you go. It's the life part. It's the life part. It's the life part. Now, society's a part of life. You got to deal with a lot of people. But it's the life part. Dealing with life is hard, even if you don't actively deal with a whole bunch of people all the time.
You have Omar, McNulty, Kima. They meet in a seemingly like in a not an alleyway, but seemingly at probably one of Omar's hideouts. Omar is wounded from the gunshot from Weebay from last episode. He knows that he cannot go into any hospital because they'll have Barksdale people looking for him. So he asks for their help in terms of his wound. He also tells them about the truce that's on about the truce that's been put out there by the Barksdales. They encourage him to take the truce. They encourage him to take the truce. So they, assuming that they helped him out with the wound, that they hooked him up from that standpoint, got an independent doctor and what have you, and they again tell him to take the truce. Again, the wound has gotten bad. You know, the gunshot wound's gotten bad. What are your thoughts on Omar in this scene?
Yeah, I mean, like you outlined it completely. That's what the scene was. You know, Omar is now using, you know, he's now trying to get something out of this partnership with the police. So now he doesn't have to go to the hospital, both because they're looking for him and the police will be asking a whole bunch of questions as well. So he doesn't have to do that. Yeah. It just shows that he's ready. I mean, like that he can also, you know, exploit the relationship as well.
Yeah, I mean, you see a case of them, you know, people using each other from, you know, for their own benefits. For that scene, you have Orlando and the undercover cop. So Orlando, of course, been arrested and processed. The undercover cop tells him he's going to end up in city jail. In Orlando. Now, again, this is why Orlando has no business in the game. He uses Avon's name when he's speaking to the cop. So that cop takes Avon's name and runs it through the system, and that'll lead to a further scene. But that basically sealed. Or if Orlando wasn't going to get knocked off as he got arrested, that basically sealed his deal when he used Avon's name. Again, just showing you that this guy has no business in the game using the top kingpin's name and not just asking for a lawyer, which you get arrested, just ask for Levy and just don't say anything. What were your thoughts?
I mean, like that everything that you said that's it.
So you have Signer.
Big mistake, but it is what it is.
Signer, Carver sitting on the Mondo Mart phone. They again, no Herc at this. Yeah, no Herc. Signer, so it's Signer and Carver. They sit on that phone and they wait until they're waiting for a Barksdale soldier to call from that phone, as they've been, you know, as they were told in the previous couple of scenes ago by Freeman, that's something that they would have to do in order to wait for this call for the relay in terms of the re-up. So you have them sitting on the phone. Then you have Freeman and Santangelo. Then you have Santangelo on the roof, actually doing police work. Our buddy Santangelo he's been revived. So he takes pictures of little man making the call to Mondo Mart. Freeman picks up the call back at the station, back at the detail, tells Signer about it. They see the guy making the call, picking up the phone at the Mondo Mart, and then Signer proceeds to follow the Barksdale soldier to a stash house that they did not have any clue about, that belongs to, of course, Avon Barksdale. These scenes kind of went all together. That's why I kind of combined.
Yeah. They go all together, and it's just kind of like that gave them a further viewpoint of the scope of Barksdale's organization, and like now the police are zeroing in on the actual places they can confiscate, they can get into, and so yeah, that showed that.
So you have Bunk, McNulty, and Wallace. Wallace has been picked up. He's in one of the interrogation rooms sleeping. And Bunk lets him know, not Bunk, McNulty lets Bunk know that that he went easy, was giving up names, gave up Stringer, Weebay, Bird, gave up their names. He said McNulty explains to Bunk that he barely had to push, that he was ready to go. Clearly you see Wallace sleeping. Clearly he's drugged up and has been getting high.
But that's not the reason that he's ready to go, though.
That's not the reason why that's not. But he gave up all these names, and McNulty lets Bunk know that what Wallace saw in terms of Omar's boyfriend being killed, and basically you see McNulty being empathetic towards Wallace's situation, somewhat for McNulty. I thought, because he said he tells Bunk, could you imagine seeing that when you wake up or something to that extent? What were your thoughts on that conversation with Bunk and McNulty?
I will expand on this McNulty point a little bit later. So I'm gonna leave McNulty for later, because he's gonna get it again. But what I will say to kind of like set things up is just like my thing was just poor Wallace. Just poor Wallace. Like we talking about anyways, just in that scene alone, if the man doesn't need any more props, but he gets it from me on this one. Cause man, Wallace was pulling at all the heartstrings just in that one look. And the reason why I say it's not the drugs that made him tell. He's using the drugs because of the impact of what has happened, and not only just the stick-up boy being murdered and dumped and put right in front of him is one thing, but it's the weight of all that. It's the weight of this isn't the scene. No, this is not where they talk about his age and blah blah blah. Right? That's later. That's a little bit later. So I'll pause a little. Yeah, I'll pause a little bit on that. But just in terms of the weight of everything that has happened, just in the time frame we've seen Wallace. Has been a lot, and we've already had D'Angelo. If we didn't even, he's such a great actor. Why am I blanking on his name?
Which one?
Wallace.
Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah, Jordan. Michael B. Jordan is such a great actor, but even beyond like the acting skills, like he makes us very empathetic for Wallace. But even without that, we have D'Angelo naming it out loud. Like, you have a good heart. He has a good heart. And so the weight of this is crushing to him. It's just all too much to deal with. And so, yeah, I'm just, that entire scene, I'm just like, poor Wallace. McNulty and Buck outside doing their regular thing, but that's not a regular suspect in that room.
So to back up on Orlando a little bit, you had Ronnie Moe spotting Orlando in the jail. Ronnie Moe, of course, was arrested earlier in the scene, was taken in the scene where I believe when Bodie punched the cop, I think Ronnie Moe got popped in that scene, but he was arrested earlier in the season. He spots Orlando in the city jail, and of course that in essence sealed Orlando's fate. Once you see a Barksdale soldier spot Orlando in the jail. So I just wanted to get that in real quick before we moved on. Now we can get to Wallace, Daniels, McNulty. Wallace in this scene gives up Stringer, not D'Angelo. They tried to press him on they tried to press him on the Keisha, the Deidre Crescent case with Weebay shooting her and D'Angelo, the tap story. They tried to press him. It seemed like he was about to say something, but then caught himself and said D'Angelo's been good to me, but he gave up Stringer and not D'Angelo in that scene. What were your thoughts?
Oh, I mean, just again, Michael B. Jordan's a beast, man. But he's a beast. He's a beast because he's saying all like when you say like he gave up Stringer, what was actually happening was McNulty was saying things, and then Wallace was nodding. Particularly around the Stringer thing. He says, "You said you did the Stringer," and then Wallace just kind of nods or whatever. But in the point, like that's acknowledging that, and it's so heavy because the way in which Michael B. Jordan plays it and the way Wallace nods, it's like it's a point of he knows how big a deal this is. Wallace is very, very smart, and he knows how big a deal this is. He also is just so tired. He's just so tired, so beat down, and so exhausted that like what you were saying. And then the flip side with D'Angelo, what you were saying is he's in that tired state, but because D'Angelo has done so right by him, he can't, even in his emotional and just life weary exhaustion, he can't give himself to give up. He fights it to give up D'Angelo, but he has none of those barriers for Stringers, whatever. So it's just like he just kind of like just not. So, anyways, yeah, just Wallace, great, just
No,
great.
Michael B. Jordan.
Wallace.
Michael B. Jordan is phenomenal in this episode.
Yeah.
And without even saying anything, just like you say, his body language, his facial expressions, you felt he tugged at your heartstrings in this episode without question. He was phenomenal.
He shows this is a great example of showing, not telling, right? Like they give you the little blurb early on where McNulty goes, he was ready to fall. And then Michael B. Jordan shows you what it looks like without telling you a word. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's fantastic.
So you have Wallace. No, you have both McNulty and Daniels trying to figure out what to do with Wallace. They're trying to figure out what the next move is for them. They recognize also that he didn't give up enough information for them to go really after D'Angelo hard. But they have Stringer and Weebay and Bird. But they're trying to figure out what they're going to do with trying to figure out what to do with Wallace. You have Carver, Freeman, and Signer looking at Barksdale Stash House pictures. These are pictures that they have taken after. These are pictures that have been looking at their Stash House pictures. So this is kind of like a setup for this is kind of like a setup for a later scene when Prez and Signer go sign kind of undercover. So this is the setup for that. You want to add anything to that?
I'm trying to remember, when is it that McNulty gets the phone call? Was it in that? I mean, so here's what I'm saying. I have a ton to talk about with.
So McNulty, McNulty gets the phone call.
I wanted to wait until that.
No. So all right, to your point, McNulty gets the phone call as they're discussing the strategy in terms of what they're going to do with Wallace.
Yeah, I'm ready.
We're coming up.
Yeah, I'm ready. Go. So that's why I wanted to connect that with that.
We're at McNulty and Elena and Perlman at the.
Okay. So the phone call happened in that other scene, right? Yes. When they were discussing. Okay, perfect. Okay. All right. Yep. All right. Now I'm here. I'm ready. I'm ready to go in. All right. So the big thought that popped in my head as I was watching it is I was like, they failed Wallace. They failed Wallace and they shot themselves in the foot. Now it's easy to go back and play, Monday morning quarterback on this, but everything up to this point, McNulty's been pushing this case. You have a witness sitting in the chair who ties all of this together, right, and y'all can't figure out what to do with him. And particularly McNulty, Like, I get it. That's your kids and everything like this. But, yo, you had them tagging Stringer Bell, and therein lies the problem. Stringer Bell wasn't the main target in this one. It was Avon. Wallace couldn't give them Avon. He could give them Stringer Bell, but he could give Avon. And so that knocked him down a priority on McNulty's list. So McNulty goes off. I get it. The kids, I get it. But no, you was driving this. You have somebody that connects it all together. And we know how McNulty gets. I can connect dots for other seasons. I'm just going to do it right now because I'm rewatching this. We know how McNulty gets fixated on the top target. Stringer does become the number one target, but in season number one, he was not. He was not. And so, and that's part of McNulty's journey, as we will see over the entire thing. So McNulty fails him, and it's an obvious failing, and we know why he fails him from the coming seasons. But then everybody else in that room failed him, and they do it over and over again. This is also a journey. This is I don't know what, I'm sure if Chad was here, I'd be able to ask him, or I'm sure the writer, everything like this. That's kind of like this is the turning point in everybody's journey, whatever that trigger moment is. I don't know what the word would be. So that's what it would be. But like with Bubbles is now at this point with Whalen confronting his life choices and where he's going to go next. The unit is at a crossroads right here that will determine their kind of like their journey point, or the kind of like this will define their arc for not only this season but all seasons to come, right? Like they will continue to fail over and over again because they will not recognize the right moment when it's sitting there in their face. This is the flashpoint right here. Wallace is right there.
So to your point, not only do you have Wallace right there in front of you, McNulty, there's no way McNulty even forget about going to the court to deal with his wife in that situation. He doesn't even take the call if he feels as strongly about Avon, about Stringer as Avon. If he views Stringer as a top target, or if he views this as a priority, to your point, because it's not Avon. There's no way he doesn't even take the call, let alone leave the room. Like he takes the call and then leaves the room, or leaves the police station and leaves it up to who you have, Daniels and Bunk. Yeah, Daniels and Bunk.
Both of them, I mean, like, that's his superior, and Bunk is his mentor. So I get it. They failed too. I'm not taking it off of them. They failed just as well. But McNulty was driving this bus.
No, right. This is your case. This is the one you've been pushing since 2021. This is your baby. And you bounce off a call.
When you have a real live person in there that can put everything you've been talking about together.
So you have McNulty, his wife, Perlman. He says, before he leaves, I need a lawyer. His wife, of course, is attempting to limit his custody with his kids. We hear about the story. She brings up the story to front and follow that happened last episode. She takes that, she drags that, throws that in his face. She also knows that he's cheating with Perlman. Perlman's basically
that's the person he cheated. That's what we learn kind of breaks up their marriage, because she hired a private detective.
She hired a private detective.
Those are fair, not just like a one night stand.
No. They've been together for a while now. So Perlman's basically like, why am I even here? Like, Perlman has no interest in this whatsoever.
She's not a divorce lawyer.
She's not a divorce lawyer.
I'm not a divorce lawyer. It's not just hire any lawyer, of anything. You need a divorce or parent custody. You know what I'm trying to say. That type. She's not that. She's like, what?
So, so she's like, whatever. She's like, whatever. I don't.
Family law. Yeah, whatever.
This is not my cup of tea. The judge basically, gives them both McNulty's read them the riot act. Sends them out the courtroom to kind of figure it out and make nice for the judge. So they leave the courtroom. she tells him that she tells him that she knows about that he's sleeping with her and all that stuff, and then he says that he still loves her, so they go back in the courtroom and try to make nice for the judge. But the big piece is, you forget all that. The big piece is the fact that he left the police station to go even deal with that. That's the big piece of all of that. To your point, getting back to your original point about them failing Wallace and him failing Wallace in particular. So you have Orlando and Levy. Levy forces Orlando to sign papers to take his name off the club, transfer his name off the club. He basically says, look, man, you're not clean anymore. You're a front. Your name is a front, supposed to be clean. You are not that at this point. At first, Orlando kind of refuses to sign, but Levy basically says, you really want to tell them that you refuse to sign these papers, this is what you really want to do. Orlando signs, and I love this line at the end by Levy. He said, "You wanted to be in the game, now you're in the game." So he leaves on that. Levy leaves on that note. Orlando's name is now completely off the fronts for the liquor license. So they've transferred that over, and Lee is another example of showing you how much importance that Levy has to their organization as well. So that scene kind of showed that in terms of the type of work that he's doing, that he does for them, and how involved and we will see in further episodes how much involvement that he really has, how much they really respect what he says.
Yeah, it's called a dirty lawyer. That's how
he's
very dirty.
He's dirty. No,
lawyers should not be coercing clients into doing things for major drug dealers. Like, no, that's called a dirty lawyer. Yes, he is very much, but he's very much a part of and very much the mafia, crimes like John God, like stuff like that, like where the lawyer is an extension of their
he's Sal Goodman. He's Sal Goodman like. Yeah,
right, question. Exactly. Yep, that's a good one.
So you have Stringer, Omar, and Prop Joe meet down. It seemed like it was the harbor, down at the harbor in Baltimore. They're trying to negotiate this truce. Prop Joe is the mediator of this. It's kind of like the in-between person of this. Prop Joe and, of course, Omar and Prop Joe pretend like they don't know each other. And you have Prop Joe saying, "I'm making out like one of these divorce lawyers who tells his wife that she needs to give some more head to her husband." So I'm assuming that he got paid for that he got compensated to make that meet.
Yeah, they talked about it at the beginning of that scene, him and Stringer.
Stringer, yes. So Prop Joe, compensation, classic Prop Joe fashion. He's going to get something out of this. So Prop Joe makes the introduction. He walks away, and then you have Omar and Stringer discussing the truce. Omar tries to get Stringer to use Avon's name and try to get more information on Avon from that standpoint. He was wearing a wire. Of course, I don't think that Stringer knew he was wearing a wire, but of course Stringer is careful in terms of his language and what he says. He says that he's willing to settle for basically. We come to find out. I don't think that he made the offer in this scene. But we come to find out that Omar was offered $5,000 for a truce.
Omar said like 10,000.
Yeah, 5 to 10,000. Yeah, 10,000.
He says 10,000. They offer him 5,000, but we find out why he did that at the very end. Anyway.
So Stringer says, look, it's going to be more soldiers on one end than the other in terms of this, letting Omar know he's basically by himself versus a whole army of Barksdale soldiers too. So that kind of like ends the scene. That doesn't end the scene. You see Omar go in the car with Kima and McNulty, and he says, I did what I could. did what I could, takes the wire off, and Kima, Kima speaks of how careful Stringer was in terms of the words and the language that he used during the meeting. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Fantastic scene. I have so much to say about it. So the big thing about this is, we use the chess analogy a lot, right? And a lot of times when people are talking about chess analogies, they're talking about like how someone thinks several moves ahead in order to beat somebody. Well, a lot of times in chess, it's about just figuring out what your opponent's trying to do next, and you do next, and then they do something else next, and then they do something else next. And so a lot of times for a part of a chess game, not the ones where they're just going like thousands of miles per hour, like they're just calculating so much things, but just kind of like a normal chess game, a lot of it ends in a lot of stalemates. Honestly, that's how chess ends out. And so I say that to say this scene was about showcasing the intellect of both Omar and Stringer Bell. The specifics of what they were talking about do not matter because they both were making plays against each other that had nothing to do with what they were talking about. The conversation was to lead them into the next thing that would have been their downfall. Omar's working with the police. He's trying to get Stringer to give up X, Y, and Z. Who, like, Avon would have been cherry on top, but whatever he gave up. He's just trying to get him to talk. Stringer, of course, is too disciplined for that. Stringer's trying to figure out a way to implement his strategy, of course, of we just wait, get him out in the open, and then that's when we hit him. Omar, of course, is too smart for that. So Omar says the money amount, but not because he wants the actual money, but to see what Stringer's response to the money is going to be. This is playing chess. This is exactly what it is. So they're mentally combating with each other. It's not about who has how many soldiers on what side, whatever. That's a point that he's making in there. But what the big thing is, it's about how the other person is reacting and what they can get the other person reaction to be into the specific, and to get them into their specific move so that they can ultimately do checkmate. It's a beautiful scene.
No, it was, it was, this was, this is tying a lot of stuff in terms of how these two dudes operate. Your chess analogy is right on.
Yeah, wait, really quick. I just want to say this one last thing. And the reason why it's so beautiful is because for like up until this point in time, I'll try to think back, but the knock always is that white criminals, the mafia, are geniuses, kingpins, like get all these lauding names, even though they're doing these horrible things. And black criminals are just regulated to drug dealers and crackheads, right? And so, not to say, anything about glorifying, but it's just showing the intellect of these characters. Like they're not just these brutish animals running around shooting things, that there's some intellect to this. And so while it's showing, of course, a very negative thing, these are still characters in a story. Instead of demonizing black men, it's actually showing them as being intellectual beings, which is very cool to see.
Yeah, and Omar went into that scene. There was nothing that Stringer could say to him that he was going to get him to like trust him completely. He's just
it's not about trust. Neither one of them are going to trust him at all. No, of course not.
So he wanted to see where they, like you said, he wanted to see where they were coming from. He expected that and with this scene, and I'm gonna hold off because this scene pays off.
We got to connect those two.
This scene pays off at the end of that. So I'll hold off to that till then. So you have Kima, and by the way, no, before you get to this, do not.
What is the rank of this? This episode is.
This episode is high. No.
Like you said, Kima, I was like, man, we haven't even gotten there yet.
We haven't even got to know.
Wow, yeah, this was
a monster.
This was a monster. Yeah, this was a monster. This was a monster. Yeah. Yeah, when you said Kima, I was like, wow, we haven't even got to Kima yet. Man. Yeah, there's a lot going on in this episode. This was a monster. Wow.
I want people to put a bookmark to the fact that it is not coincidence that Prop Joe was a part of that meeting. People want people to bookmark that, the Prop Joe Omar Stringer. Want people to really just put a bookmark next to that for the future references. Not anytime soon, but for the future. Just kind of keep that in mind, because that will not be the last time we see those threesome together. So you have Wallace. You have Wallace and Daniels. Daniels, now again, Daniels drives Wallace down to his grandmother's house. So it turns out, like, when they had the discussion in terms of options, they couldn't find a place.
They were not, the police department was too cheap and stingy.
Yes, to put him in a hotel room.
To put him in a hotel room because he was a junior, a juvenile, and they didn't see the value in him.
Yeah, so
implicit in his value wasn't what he was going to give. What was stated in the value, like in the equation of what they were going to do with him, was he's so young. He might order room service. He might, So then they have to pay somebody to look after him and everything like that. And so I want to be very clear on that. It's because they were too cheap and did not value him as a witness. That's why he's with his grandma.
So they drive the other option. You had the hotel as an option. You had the grandmother as a second option. They drive him down. Perlman says, well, you better just go with the grandmother. Go to the grandmother's house, who's down in the country. So you have Daniels before you even get to the drive down to the grandmother's house.
Wait, really quick. Let me zip back to that, because I like this is you want to talk about failure, and this is, again, I have to point this out because this is a failure that happens over multiple seasons, over and over again. So this is a big point in it. So the first option is, can anybody stay? Can you just stay with them? Nope, nobody wants to do that. Then the second option is the hotel, all the reason hotel. And then McNulty asked Perlman, hey, can you run it up to your people, see if anybody else you can shake some cash? Because the police department definitely is going to give me money. Can y'all shake up some cash for it? And she's like, no. This is a witness over a case this is a prime witness over a case they've been going months and months and months and going round and round and round. And they can't figure out how to set him up so that he's not. And it's because they don't value him. Like, that is very specifically. It's because they don't see the value in him that they're not willing to protect him.
Yeah, he's not taking down Avon. Back to your earlier point.
It's Avon, but it's also, like, just to get a little bit deeper, because the Wire deserves it. They say these things as well. They don't value him as a witness. If that was a white boy, it would not be the same thing. It's just that simple. Let's call a spade a spade. And so it's just like, and like, remember, like, when they're even the police, how they describe Wallace is this yayo. Right? Like, what about this? Yeah. This is a potential major witness in our criminal conspiracy. We might want to keep an eye out for him. We might want to do that. But because he's just a project nigga, they don't care.
To your point, McNulty is the reason why McNulty had to bribe the police officers with crab cakes and beer.
Yeah, they would have left. Or in his mind, he thinks they just would have just been like, man, who cares? Like, it wouldn't have been a big enough deal for them.
Yeah, no question about it. So even before they drive down to the grandmother's place, you have Daniel saying, hey, before we leave, we can grab dinner. Now, the reason why I bring this up because I figured that Wallace does not have a lot of money. He's living in a shithole. So you would think that, now his response.
He's a teenager. What teenager has a lot of money? A teenager living on his own.
No. Right. So you would think when Daniels brings up dinner, you figure like, oh damn, what are we gonna eat? Like, you be ready to eat a horse. Wallace is so out of it, especially drugged up. He's too sick to even. He's not even thinking about food. He's like no. I don't. I'll just hang on ET's Twizzlers basically. So I found that interesting that and Daniel says, hey, are you gonna be how long? Then Daniels figures out like, look, it comes to Daniels, hey, this kid has been using a lot. He asks Wallace how much he's been using, and basically Wallace says like a cap a day or something to that extent. And of course, we know Wallace has been using. We saw him buying drugs in previous episodes. Seeing him buy drugs on the corner a couple episodes ago. We saw him using in his place a few episodes back. So he's, and then this was the brilliance by Michael B. Jordan in terms of he looks completely done. Physically, mentally, he looks shot, completely shot. So it was important, very important that I give you that picture of what he looked like before they even took that drive down to his grandmother's house.
Yeah, I don't really have anything. You nailed it.
Avon, Wee-Bey, Stringer, Chardine. So you have Avon, Wee-Bey, and Stringer are in Avon's office upstairs. Chardine comes up to give them drinks. And this, I love this scene because this scene could be easily passed off, but this just shows you the brilliance of this show. She comes in the room with the drinks. She gives them the drinks, and Wee-Bey is about to just start running his mouth about Omar and what have you. We don't even hear the whole conversation because we're not meant to hear the whole conversation. Avon was like, "Ho, stop. Avon says, hold up. Thank you, darling, to the girl, to that nature. Lets her head out, closes the door. She tries to hear, but she barely can hear anything through the doors, noises, music, of course, out coming from the club. But I just love the fact. Now again, we don't hear the full conversation, but we can make out that they were talking about Omar and the truce and all that, and what came about from the Stringer conversation with Omar. So assuming that was the conversation, but I just loved how careful they showed Avon and why Avon is the kingpin in terms of that scene. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, they follow their rules. They follow their rules. It's interesting to me.
No, but hold on. Let me stop you there. It wasn't at that point. You say they. It wasn't they because Stringer and Wee-Bey was about to start talking. Avon had to stop them, Wee-Bey, from saying anything and say like, "Yo, hold up." He said, "Hold up," and he closed the door. So I thought them showing Avon following the rule rather than Stringer and Wee-Bey was purposeful.
Yeah, you're right. Avon's the boss. It's his rules. You're absolutely right about that. We didn't get. I'll connect the thing that I was gonna focus on was Chardine, but I'll connect it when we get to the her and Lester or Freeman scene.
Okay, cool. So we have Kima's out with her girlfriend and a couple other friends out at a bar. They're getting drunk. Kima tells a story about basically her initiation to being a cop, or when she first fell in love with the job. She gets the approval of an officer that had been of a well-known officer that has been highly respected within the department, and she earns his approval, and then she ends the conversation with says, and then he dropped the bracelets. So he dropped the bracelets because he says he basically giving her that a boy or that a girl first in terms of what she's done during this particular arrest. So he allows her to cuff. I'm assuming that he allowed her to cuff the whoever they were arresting, and so she's giving you her some insight into why she loves police work and why she initially fell in love with being a cop. The important part, of course, obviously that story, but her girlfriend doesn't approve of it. So she and Kima acknowledges that aspect, and they go on taking shots and what have you. And first, the girl to begin the story, the girl asked Kima why she why she became a cop, and then she told the story. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, I mean, it's again, this one is, you know, setting up a big part of Kima's journey through the entire series. What's going to go on? Now that I've been saying this a lot, I wonder when they found out they were going to be new. So like this, yeah, setting up that journey, part of her journey throughout the entire series, because you're absolutely right that, you know, that's going to be a big story, a big piece that she's not happy with that, and we'll see the ramifications of it. But I mean, like obviously, it also sets up what's about to come. We're going to get we get a little bit more depth of Kima's life and like what makes her, why she was a cop. So you start to relate, you can relate to her story, which makes what happens even more impactful, right? And then you can understand other characters' point of view of why they might be a little bit hesitant of this whole cop thing. So it does a great job of setting up what's to come in this episode, what's to come in this season, and then also her journey as a character over the series.
No question about it. So then we have Signer and Prez going somewhat undercover, not undercover, as trash pickup people, sanitation workers. That's the word I'm looking for. Sanitation workers. They go and pick up trash from a Barksdale stash house. One of the few times that Prez is out of office, so that was a big part of that scene. So that they go pick out some trash from the Barksdale stash house, which will be payoff later on, not in this episode. We'll see some payoff from that later on in the season. We have Troy Wiggins, which is the undercover cop that busted Orlando, goes down to the detail, and he tells him about Orlando. They make the connection with Orlando. He tells him that Orlando's giving up names, giving up Avon's names, tells him that, you know, about that he busted Orlando. Of course, they make the connection. They have Orlando, of course, on the board of a wall of criminals and that they have in the office. Of course, and also we find out that he knew Kima from way back when, from around the time she first started on the force. So you have that connection with that. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, I mean the dots are starting. You can feel the momentum picking up in this episode, right? Like it's just like we said, what, either last episode or the episode before that, it's down. It's kind of like you were at the top of that roller coaster, and now it's downhill. This is whatever's that most, you know, or the part before the most frightening part. This is it right here, or like right at that frightening part, given how the episode ends. But the momentum is just picking up in this episode. And so now all the different dots are starting to connect, or all the things are starting to line up in terms of you can start to see how the police's case is coming together. Like this episode shows you now the tangible ways all this can come together. And then the end happens. Oh man, it's a good episode. This is a really
good. Yeah, it was a great episode.
Yeah.
Shardine and Freeman. So Shardine and Freeman meet up. She is describing what she saw and what she didn't see at the Barksdale office, at the Orlando's club and the offices. She basically has nothing for Freeman. We find out, then he recognizes her, sees. She basically tells her that she can't see very well without her glasses. Tells him that she doesn't wear glasses, of course, while she is a stripper, so she's not gonna wear her glasses while she's working. She described one of the dudes that she saw as tall, and that basically was it. She said she didn't hear. Basically, she didn't get anything out in terms of hearing. Didn't hear anything. So this triggered something in Freeman's mind that we will see later on, not in this episode, but in the future. So this trick this will pay off later on in the season. What are your thoughts on this?
I think you're being very kind to Freeman that this particular thing triggered anything. He's a man, she's a woman. That triggered it from the beginning. But
I felt like that. I felt like
even with that, but I did want to connect. I'm being facetious, so I'm joking. Even with that part being said, my wondering, you're right. Like I can't separate. This is another one of those instances where I can't separate what I know from this scene.
Right.
I wonder if he didn't have those feelings for him, or if he wasn't triggered in there, how many more times she would have had to go back in the club, right? This is the difference between Charlene and other characters in the show in terms of, the way that she's treated is very, very different from how others are treated in terms of how much we can get out of you. Basically, she says, I can't see, I couldn't hear. And he goes, okay. You're done. Like what? Like no, that's not how they treat anybody else. Like so on one end there's a thing that could be like, okay, he's the opposite of McNulty. He's not going to like force somebody into uncomfortable situation. But then, like I said, I can't take what
you already know,
No, and I know that there's an underlining pending there of attraction, and then whatever, what results from that. And so it looks very convenient for her that she didn't have to try, that there was no other move to be made there. And I'm not saying it's right to put her in that situation. I'm just saying the way that she was handled was very different from how other characters are handled when they sit in that chair across from the detective.
They didn't handle Orlando. They didn't handle Orlando.
No, they didn't handle nobody like that. Nobody got handled like that. Nobody. Charlene got that A+. VIP treatment. Yes.
In terms of witness, yes. Well, look at the witnesses in this episode: Wallace, Charlene, Orlando.
Yep.
There's no comparison.
No comparison at all. No comparison at all. None. Zero. They did not put her. No.
So speaking of, speaking of Orlando, we have Kima, Daniels, Perlman, McNulty discussing what they're gonna do with Orlando, and so what they're gonna do with Orlando. So we'll push that towards later on the episode because they're kind of still going over. We'll find out. We will find out what the strategy was, and I have plenty to say about that strategy. So you have them discussing what they're going to do with Orlando. Then Kima meets with Bubbles, and Bubbles asks her for money. Of course, he's trying to get his own place. He is trying to get his life in order, trying to get clean. At first, she's annoyed at first because she thought she didn't know what it was for. But then she tells him she's happy. She's happy for him. She agrees to pay him, give him the money. Doesn't give him on the spot. She says, meet me tomorrow. She says, I have to do something tomorrow. I have to do something tonight. Meet me tomorrow. What were your thoughts on that scene?
This is heartbreaking.
It was very
devastatingly just shattering scene because knowing what's going to come is just awful. It makes you feel awful. But so well acted by both actors. Like I know his name, Andre Royo. I always forget her name.
Sonia San.
Yep. I mean, like it was awesome to watch these two work together in that scene. It's devastating. It's just a devastating scene. Like there's literally nothing. They did a hell of a job, and because they did such a hell of a job, it's devastating. It breaks your heart. And you're just like Kima's like I think like so I'll just completely just put fan hat on. I got no big time analysis of that because they I'm just in the scene. They created the moment. I'm in it. And so literally like just purely what I was saying to myself, I was like, Kima's just such a good person. Like literally I'm just like, this cements her. She's just such a good person. And I'm just like, Bubbles can't catch a break. Like those two things were literally what I was thinking. Like, seeing knowing all like da-da-da. That's how in the moment that everything about that scene creates. Like I was just thinking about what was going on in that moment with those characters. Nothing else.
So you have Kima, no, we already went with that. Daniels, Forrester, and Burrell. Burrell just completely disregards the wire and says, I want buy bus, period. I want buy bus. I don't give a shit about this wire. Basically, not Bubbles. Daniels is basically saying, look, we can't, that's not how we get Avon Barksdale or any other top people in the drug game. They're not going to get close to drugs. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. But again, Burrell hasn't been with this case from the start. He's been against this case, especially going back to the money.
That's the big part. Yep.
That is a part of it. He wants no part of that. That pissed him off even to another level. So he demands buy bus. That's how that scene ends. We didn't get to Omar and McNulty. Omar realizes again that it was a trap. It was a trap because it was a trap by the Barksdales, because he says that if they would have offered him nothing, he thought he would have been like, all right, they're keeping it real. But the fact that they offered him $5,000, $10,000 to come down to the pit or to the towers, he wasn't buying that part of it. He lets McNulty know that he wasn't buying that. He gets some money from McNulty before he heads off to New York. McNulty, of course, lets him know that we're gonna need you, stay healthy, stay alive. We're gonna need you for the Gantt trial. Of course, that's for the future, for that Gantt trial. Of course, for him being the main witness or being the testifier. Of course, we know he lied about. But this scene, of course, is the payoff from the Stringer prop Joe scene. That whole meeting, what you talked about, the two playing chess.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'll just expand on it because it's actually said here. And so, like I said, Omar floats out 10,000 to Stringer. Stringer goes back to Avon and says, because Avon was like, he's trying to
get my pockets,
get back in my pockets and everything like that. And so Stringer comes back with gets word back to Avon that they settled on $5,000. Now, it's important about that Avon Stringer interaction to me. I think there's so much in this episode, I cannot go off on a tangent on this. But I will say the thought crossed my mind that maybe Stringer was playing for the top spot this entire time. That just popped into my head. I have examples, but I don't want to derail. I really don't. When you brought up the Kima thing, and I was like, we haven't even gotten to Kima. I was like, I can't. So, put a pin on that. I'll talk more about that. But no, we got to get to Kima. We have to.
You made me think about what's going to happen.
There's a lot. I just can't. I can't derail. We have to do what happened just.
All right.
And so with that being said, then I'm just going to go on to the fact that then Omar says he literally says to McNulty, that's the reason why I said a money amount. That's why I said it. Because if they would have just told me, be glad for living and buy, then I would have been like, okay, maybe this is a real thing. Maybe this whole parlay is a real thing. But the fact that they were willing to give him anything. And again, Avon clearly says, we're not giving you nothing. So the fact that they want, it says it's a Stringer. So that just backs up Omar's story, like visually backs up his side, his version, why he's telling McNulty. McNulty doesn't know that Stringer and Avon have had this conversation. That's for us, the viewers. So that backs it up. Like he knows that all Stringer was trying to do was lure him out. He never intended to pay him $5,000 for good, like, here you go money. Like, nah, he was trying to lure him out to kill him. So anyways, that's the tangible way of where we can see what Omar's play was in that whole scene. Because it wasn't obvious when they're in the court talking to each other. But then they break down how smart Omar is in this scene.
Yeah, I want you to put a bookmark next to your stringer point for next episode, because I think next
Yeah,
episode,
yeah. But that's why I said the whole. I mean, like, of course, season 3 informs me, but watching it again, I'm like, I didn't catch on to how early he was maneuvering. And to keeping our chess analogy, he's playing both Armor and Avon. And I can submit evidence that says that. I'll get that.
yeah,
Yeah,
we'll get to
yeah,
that.
yeah, exactly.
So you have, so Omar leaves. McNulty gives him a little cash. He heads to New York City. Heads to New York City, and that basically wraps up the Omar part of season 1. To be honest with you, he makes one more appearance that we'll see. But so he's out. He's in the wind now. He's in New York. Daniels, Kima, Carver, McNulty, Perlman. So they're going over the strategy with Orlando. The FBI fronts gives them $30,000 in cash to buy drugs from Savino, who was going to be in the car with them. So I guess the strategy was, you're going to take this money, buy the drugs, do a buy bust with Savino, and hope that Savino starts talking recklessly about Avon and Stringer and what have you. I have plenty on this fucked up plan, because it was a fucked up plan.
I'll keep it short then. Like the fatal flaw of this police department as depicted in this show is that they keep saying these are our tried and true methods and they work. And we keep seeing opposite example after opposite example, and then it culminates in this. So go ahead. That's all I had to say. Go.
Go ahead. No, that's fine.
No, that's it. I'm done. I'm done.
So I guess that was the strategy. They give him the money. He's in the car. We can go directly to the scene. He's in the car with Kima. Orlando's driving his car. Nice car, by the way. That's a classic car. I forgot what it was, but it's one of those old, like some type of Cadillac, what have you, or old Lincoln. He's driving the car. Kima's in the car. Savino's in the car. So they're driving. The police are on them. So you have Daniels and McNulty. You have Carver and Herc and Signer. You have basically the entire detail minus Presbeluski and minus Presbeluski. And I don't think Herc. Herc was there too. So basically the entire detail minus Presbeluski. They're playing music in the car. So, but right away, Savino gets in the car. He turns the music up. So right away, you get a sense that Savino is like, why are you with this girl? So Savino, I think, was tipped off from that standpoint, because he turns the music up as she's talking, as Orlando's talking, as she's talking. So they're driving, and she's trying to give them signals on where they're going. She's trying to get the cops signals on where they're going. Music's loud. They lose the cops because the hoppers switch the signs. So they lose the cops. They lose the cops for just enough time to get to the ending scene. They park in the alleyway or by an alleyway. The cops are close, but not close enough. And they park the car. Savino gets out the car, says, "Wait, I'm going to get your stuff." We knew what time it was after that. We knew what that was going to lead up to. He disappears, and you see 2 Barksdale soldiers, which we know who they are. We know who they were. 2 Barksdale soldiers come out shooting. They shoot, kill Orlando, shoot Kima, and then eventually the cops get to. They hear the gunshots, and eventually the cops get to Kima and Orlando, and that was the scene. I gave a quote at the end of this episode to you from McNulty from last episode. I hope I got it right. Stupid criminals make stupid cops, because so everybody fucked up on this scene. I'm not going to flush out how the Barksdales fucked up, because that would take away from next episode. You will see how you. First of all, I mean, they shot an undercover cop. So that's you fucked up. Shot an undercover cop without knowing that they didn't know she was undercover, but they shot an undercover cop. So that's their fuck up. But we will flush out the Barksdales, flush out the Barksdales fuck up in episode 11, and we'll go into that. We'll deep dive that. The cops fuck up is that. So what? Again, I just want to know what was the plan. You put Orlando in this position. You have to know that the Barksdales do not trust Orlando. He's been busted by the cops. So you put him out there. What you think that Savino is going to talk about Avon and Stringer in the car while he's making his drug deal, and you don't guess that they're not going to be fishy that Orlando has $30,000 in cash. Like you as a cop, they're not going to say, think to yourself. Because you've been investigating the Barksdales for 10 episodes now. You know how smart they are. You know how organized. You know how detailed they are. You're not going to assume that it's going to look bad. It's going to look just somewhat fishy for him to have $30,000, which again, that will get flushed out in episode 11. So bookmark that point. So this plan was completely fucked up. They didn't, of course, they get nothing out of it, and they get Kima shot, and Orlando gets killed. Which to them probably was, I don't know, they just were willing to just sacrifice Orlando for the cause of the case. But to me, the risk versus the reward did not equate at all. And at 10 episodes into the season, this is episode 10, I did not get how bad, I cannot understand how fucked up this plan was. I just can't understand how they could be this bad of a plan, considering that you put one of your own in harm's way at that. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean,
and the Barksdales fucked up too. I'll say
no. I don't
up.
really have. I mean, like the ramifications of this will be very clear. I mean, like the writers of the show, the characters of the show will enact your frustration very, very quickly. Nobody comes out of this. This is like what you said. Is perfect way to say it. Nobody comes out of this looking good. Nobody. It was bad from all parts of it. So I'll take it from another angle, just because there's literally nothing I have to add to that. You nailed it perfectly. And so like I'll take it from the angle of just like what we were talking about with Kima and like her journey, right? And it's like Kima, I think in this season, in particular this episode, this was kind of like her coming out party as a integral character of this show, and a character that they were going to give layers to. We're going to give time to. Before this, I think it was just like, oh, Kima's the interesting looking one on the police force. She's smart, everything like that. But this is the one where they kind of like chose to give her layers. And like, here's where I think like where the show kind of like separates itself from other things. In another show, everything revolves around McNulty, right? Like, so somebody, if it's not McNulty who's the one who gets up shot in this episode, it's his wife that gets shot, his kids that get shot, something like that. And then it's like, oh, McNulty. And so they take a character who up until this point in time, I would say would have been peripheral. Like she had moments, but no for real moment. And like you said, this is the first like big, and they're very good at pacing them out. Big like oh shit moment of this series, and they give it to Kima, right? Like they like she's one of the ones, and so like that like to zoom out a little bit, for a show to do that, not only not a male cop, not only not a white cop, but a female, non-white police officer actually getting the dramatization around in what up to this point in time had been a vehicle for McNulty's character or whatever what's his name? I'm blanking on it. Jim something, right? Isn't it Jim? What's his name? I'm blanking on it. The actor's name, like it being his show. This kind of opened up the idea of the ensemble, right? Because anything can happen to any of the characters, and so then all of the police by de facto becoming main character, and not just this is a McNulty. This is the McNulty show. So yeah, so it was just, it's fantastic from all like so many different levels. It's impactful from storytelling point and like the everything like that. But since you laid it out so clearly, I just zoomed in from that angle. There's a million different ways you can look at what.
Well, and also too, it depicts that during that chase, so to speak, or not chase, but during them following them. We saw this in the last episode. Avon loses them in the streets with cops following them. They lose the cops in the streets with them being followed. Even though they didn't know that, even though I don't think that Orlando knew, he knew subconsciously, but he's not trying to get away. He's not trying to purposely elude the cops. But the bottom line is, I don't think it's a coincidence that in both cases that the cops showing that the criminals, so to speak, know the streets better than the police. Then you have back-to-back episodes. Avon, loses the cops, and then you have the cops having a hard time keeping up, even though they know where he's going to, or have a sense of where he's going. They have a cheat code in the car, and they still find a way to not be able to get there in time to save Kima, to keep him from getting shot, I should say. To avoid her from getting shot. So I think it depicted that, and two characters in this story, in this episode, and this definitely was intentional. Wallace, Kima, the reason why this episode was so powerful. We're rooting for these characters, two characters. We want Wallace to get out. We want him to go back to school. We want him to get out the drug game. We want him to get adopted, whatever. We're rooting for Wallace. We see Kima. Kima's easy to root for. She's a good cop. She's taking in bubs. She's doing shit for him. So she gets shot. It's like, oh, what the fuck? Like, what? No, why you shoot her? But it does not have the. If McNulty gets shot, it doesn't. A lot of people that probably want to see McNulty get shot if he were to get shot.
That's not. Yeah. I mean, no, he's a valuable character.
He's not. No, I'm saying he's valuable, but
he presents him as good. They present him as a good guy. He's a. I mean, they present him as a good police officer.
No. I'm saying no, it doesn't have the same. If McNulty were to get shot, to me, it would not have the same impact as a Kima getting shot.
Well, I mean, like, yes and no. The writers could have wrote it that way because up until that point in time, all of our police everything revolves around like the cops, NYPD Blue, the male white, they like all of that. So you can generate empathy for that. I agree with you. It was very, very great that they went with Kima. It's very great that they did that.
Yeah.
And then also, as you were talking, and you were like, yes, she did, like Kima said. What was awesome is at the time, we had no idea that she survived. We had no idea. So it's just like in the moment, even though, we know what happens, you didn't have an eye. So that's also what made it just such a big, just like, holy shit moment. As you said, it's just like, you just didn't know. It was truly like, wow. Like, wow, this was big. This is big.
This show does not waste. There's no waste of motion with this show. So when they depict violence, it carries a lot of weight.
Yeah.
They don't waste gunfights. They don't waste.
Nah.
They don't waste anything. So when something like this happens, we'll see moving further on in episodes and seasons that no, most of it is going to be it's going to be heavy duty writing and build up and police work and things and intricacies in terms of these worlds that they're depicting with the police and the street and the politics and what have you, the institutions, which when David Simon calls the gods, he calls the institutions the gods. He likes to use use the Greek, a lot of Greek stuff in terms of his writing. No, when violence happens, it's a major it's like an earthquake. And again, the ramifications of this situation, the ramifications of this scene are enormous.
Yeah.
Throughout the course,
and that's also another good part of them not wasting any emotion, not like nothing is wasted, and then everything that you're saying in terms of them not like violence never ever happens on this show for just for the sake of violence. It's always a reason, and then they show you the consequences of that violence. And so yeah, there's gonna be a lot of consequences for everybody. For everybody. I mean, yeah, they don't glorify it at all. It's just there's a lot of different, and they don't glorify it, and they'll demonize it. It happened for this reason. These are all, anyways, we can get into that next episode.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's gonna be a lot to chew on. It's a lot to chew on from this.
Yes.
So there's a big moment.
Yeah. Our point is, this is not the type of show that's gonna be like, oh, okay, and Kima got shot last episode. Hope she's doing well, and we're just moving on. Like, nope.
No, not at all. Nope. Yeah, so the title of this episode, The Cost, and again, you see the cost. You see the cost of bad policing in terms of Kima getting shot. You see the cost of how they dealt with well, we haven't seen that yet, but we will see in terms of Wallace. So we'll say that. But you see the cost. You see the cost of McNulty and how this job, in terms of his marriage, and what this job has done to his marriage and to his personal life.
The cost of the game on Wallace.
Yes, yeah, the cost. Yeah, the cost of the toll that the game is taking on Wallace. That's a call. Yeah, so we can, without going deep into what would go with Wallace's future.
Nope.
We can state that the game
just the cost on him.
Yeah, the cost on him, and the toll that is taken physically, mentally, spiritually, all around on him. Also, the cost of the judge fucking with McNulty, dealing with McNulty and what politics and in terms of that was a cost that he's paying right now, not being on the mayor's ticket. So definitely you saw there was a number of costs. We can go above and wailing, the cost of what drugs have done to them in their lives, and having HIV with Whalen, and
absolutely,
and Bubbles losing his son, not being able to see his son, not being able to raise his son, and having his son taken away by the mother, in terms of what some of the decisions that he's made in his life. So again, a classic episode to say the least. A lot to chew on. MVP and the Chardine Award for Best Performance in MVP to me were the same. I thought Wallace earned both of them. He was
okay. Go ahead. No. Keep going.
I thought he was brilliant in this episode. Definitely was the best acting performance in this episode, and I also had him as the MVP as well. I thought about Kima possibly being MVP. She was definitely would have been second in terms of MVP, but I had Wallace as both MVP and the best performance as well.
Yeah, can't argue with that. But I'm gonna go Kima MVP, Wallace, best acting in there. Michael B. Jordan, best subtle acting.
Yeah,
if that's how that framing. He was awesome. He was awesome. Just awesome to get us to be that sympathetic with Wallace with so few dialogue was fantastic to watch this time. And then, like I said, this was Kima's coming out episode as a premier character. Yep. This is that. So she's my MVP.
Yeah, no, it's a lot. A lot to take from this episode. Again, you will see the ramifications of what took place. We will flush out the Barksdale mistake next episode, because that it even goes deeper than shooting an undercover cop. It's even beyond that. And it's a scene I've been waiting for
Is this number 10?
This is 10. Yeah, next week is
10. Yeah.
Next week's scene. Yeah, next week's episode is a scene that I've been waiting for to kind of connect the point that I've been waiting for the last 5 or 6 weeks. That something, and I think all our points that we make are going to be connecting. So I'll be looking forward to that. As always, thanks to Robert Sapp for joining the program, sir.
All right. Have a good one. Stay healthy. Stay safe out there.
No question. You too.
All right.
That's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Real Deal Podcast, The Wire Remix, Season 1, Episode 11, The Cost. I will see you next time with another episode of the Real Deal Podcast. Have a great rest of your day and rest of your weekend. I'm out.